and a second for approval of minutes as published. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. First item on tonight's agenda is a rezoning development permit RZ 20-02. Mr. Rhodes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission, and Rhodes, Senior Planner. Before you is a rezoning development permit incorporating at 125 East Kenwood Street. The request is to rezone about 0.44 acres from R2 to C2, that's roadway commercial. The property is currently being used as a commercial business and not a residence. The rezoning is a request in an effort to bring the property into conformity with zoning and to allow for a potential building addition to the building. Here you see the full site plan. The addition I mentioned will be located at the top left corner, roughly in this area. For the future land use map, you see that this area is considered mixed use in the brown color shading and medium density family in the orange shading. For the purposes of the rezoning, staff is considering the whole property as mixed use and commercial works with that designation. And finally, you're looking at the site. This is looking to the north. Staff inquired with the owner on if fencing will be installed on the east side. And they opted not to install fencing at this time due to security issues, although they would be open to the concept if it could be tied specifically to the building permit rather than the rezoning. Staff is recommending approval of the rezoning with no needed conditions, and we stand ready for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Is there any questions from the audience? Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve rezoning 20-08.
I have a motion and a second to approve the rezoning of RZ 20-08. Roll call.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Driscoll,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Song. Yes.
Rezoning of development permit RZ 20-08 is approved. This will go to the board on November the 3rd, 2020. Next agenda item is rezoning development permit RZ 20-06. Ben Rhodes.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Commission. We are now considering a second rezoning request. This is occurring at the Endura Estates addition. This is to go from A1 to R1, which is a residential large. So you'll note that unlike traditional rezoning applications, this one's being sponsored by the city staff. The reason this came about was due to a pending lot line adjustment between two lots in the subdivision. And the issue is that the current A1 zoning requires a minimum lot size of 3 acres. One of the lots was proposed to shrink to a smaller size than is permitted in the A1 zone. So the best remedy to these types of situations with a rezoning issue is to simply rezone the property to residential. The area was rezoned to A1 upon annexation, and A1 was at the time the default zoning for annexations of that area. Due to this being kind of somewhat of a larger issue impacting the entire subdivision, staff decided to take on the rezoning of the entire addition on behalf of these two property owners that were doing the lot line adjustment, because it was more of a universal issue with the entire subdivision. So when we decided to take that on, we did hold several neighborhood meetings up at the public library. Everyone who attended these meetings were in favor of the rezone, but they did question on whether there could be a larger lot size. Originally, the R2 zone was selected. However, due to these public comments, we went ahead and changed it to R1 to help address the neighborhood concerns. So R1 does allow for the 10,000 square foot minimum lot size. So here is the site plan of the original subdivision plat. You'll note that originally the lots were designed to be over 2 acres. However, over the years, these have been split. However, none are presently smaller than an acre. This is due to the fact that there is no city sewer, sanitary sewer to the addition due to the houses being built prior to the sewer availability. So those of you that are on septic systems know that lots need to be sized to a minimum at least an acre for health department approval for the septic leach fields. So and as far as looking at the future land use map, you'll see this site is designated in yellow to note the lower density family option. Staff believes that the R1 fits into this, although the lots are slightly smaller than the half acre size, which is at 10,000 square feet. When looking at the RE zone, which is the residential estates zone, that's the next zone with a larger lot size beyond R1. And that zone, the minimum lot width is set at 150 feet, and the setbacks have a 50-foot front and rear, and also a 25-foot side setback. So for comparison, R1 only has a 10-foot side and a 35-foot front setback. So upon inspection of the subject property's built environment, it became clear that the RE zone would bring about numerous nonconformities in terms of both the lot width and setbacks, and would likely encourage future variance requests. So the goal when setting a zone is to select one that would bring about the fewest possible nonconformities with the existing lots and structures. Finally, here you see the site. This is looking to the north. I would advise you that yesterday staff did receive a letter of opposition from one of the residents. This was attached to the revised packet, and Brian Phillips does have a copy available for anyone who may have been unable to read that letter ahead of this meeting due to it being coming in late. Staff is recommending approval for the rezone to R1, and we are available for any other questions. Thank you.
Comments from the audience? Comments from the commissioners? Questions?
Chairman, which lots would be in nonconformity with the R1?
Ben?
Good question. See if I can find the best slide to show you. I think it would be this one here. These, we did look at R1. There were only 2 lots that had a slight problem, and that's these right here. So what happened was lot 15 had a diagonal split. It happened back in 1982, and we felt that because that doesn't meet with the A1 zoning presently, that's essentially that can be grandfathered in. I mean, the lot split happened almost 40 years ago. So it's that was the only observed issue with the R1. So.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve rezoning 20-06.
I have a motion to approve rezone 20-06. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Roll call, please.
McKinney,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Driscoll,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Song. Yes. Montgomery,
Yes.
Sally.
Yes.
Motion to approve rezoning RZ 20-06. This will go to the Board of Directors on November the 3rd. Next item on the agenda is preliminary plat development permit PP 20-05. Linn?
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Planning Commission. For your next permit, you're looking at a preliminary plat that's occurring at 14505 North Country Club Road. The request is to develop a 120 lot subdivision into 2 phases, and also request the PD zone upon annexation of the property. So this is the final site plan. Originally, there was a park plan for the main entrance, which I'll circle right here. After consideration of this, staff requested that the applicant shift the park to its present location. That would be better place for a safer environment for smaller children that would be able to run out into the roadway or whatnot, since it's more interior to subdivision. The park will include several amenities such as play equipment, and will be maintained by the POA. Here you see a master development plan. We don't normally see these with preliminary plats, but this one's a little bit different because it's being a PUD. So the difference with this plan compared to the one I just showed you is that this, in the last slide, is that here you see the final improvements with the houses and drives drawn in color-coded depiction in the area. That's what these brown rectangles are all the planned houses. So in addition to the park, there will be 2 normally dry detention basins that will be also available for recreational use by the residents. There's a street connection located here to Arnett Drive and the crossings, which will be gated. This was done at the city's request to prevent through traffic from the crossings and also new traffic from Mission Hill to impact the streets in the crossings, which are currently county maintained or substandard. And also, for example, Davidson Road, which is just north of there, is completely unpaved. So we want to keep the traffic down there as much as possible. That street entrance there is a fire code requirement. They need to have that secondary access, so that will be for just emergency use only. So because the applicant is wanting to zone the PD, they have the option to customize their zoning. This is very similar to what was reviewed earlier this year by the commission for the Foxtail addition located off of Highway 16, so you might recall that one. Some notable departures from the standard R2 zone is that the minimum lot size was reduced by 1,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet, normally at 7,000. Side yard setback was reduced by 3 feet, so it would be 5 feet. And the minimum lot width is reduced by 10 feet. Lot coverage and FAR have been increased to accommodate the desired construction in the addition. So in exchange for this high density, the applicant will establish the POA, will include a park, numerous shade trees along the streets, and will include a decorative sign. And here you see an example of the subdivision sign and a description of the open space and landscaping that will be included with the PUD document attached with the submittal. Sidewalks will also be included throughout the development and also along North Country Club Road. Please keep in mind that the proposed zoning standards are provided in reference to the preliminary plat. The commission needs to make a recommendation on the preliminary plat, not necessarily the suitability of the proposed zoning. The zoning will be addressed with the annexation, and annexation, if the annexation or zoning is not approved for some reason, that will automatically disqualify the approval of this application that's before you today. So the two are linked. Finally, here is the site view looking to the north. The street in the foreground is the northernmost street of Endura Park, which is a development immediately to the south of this area. Staff is recommending approval with two needed conditions. The first is that the applicant must provide privacy fencing along the north and east sides of the project. This is normally not required, but is a special request because the density is considerably smaller than what adjoins the development. So the addition of fencing will mitigate visual impacts and also will increase security to the surrounding properties. The second condition requires that the property be annexed and zoned prior to final acceptance by the city board. With that, we are available for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Is there any comments from the audience?
Yes. Do I need to go up to the mic or can I?
No, sir, you need to come up to the mic, give us your name and your address, please.
I'm Joshua Johnson. I live at 22060 Dorothy Drive. It is in the crossing that he mentioned a while ago. So if they're going to annex that piece of property in, would that, at that point, would that make it where we could annex our crossing in as well?
Ben? Could you answer that?
I'd be happy to. Yes, that is a possibility. It could be annexed in, but there would have to be a petition of all the neighbors within that area to agree to that annexation.
Do I need to introduce myself? This is kind of my first time here.
No, if you're still standing up there, you're okay. But if you come up at a next meeting or something, yes, sir. So do you have more questions?
Yes. So with the annexation part, I know he had mentioned a gate on the separating out the crossing from that division, and they said that that there needed to be two ways in and out. If there's So if there's a gate there, how would emergency vehicles have access through that gate? I mean, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Emergency vehicles, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, they do have the code to open that gate.
Yeah, that's correct. They have something you call a Knox box, which gives you them the ability to open up the gate in case of an emergency. So they're not going to be delayed in any way because of that gate. It's just not open to the general public.
Your fire trucks and ambulances and stuff would have access to open the gate.
All right. So with I believe that the crossing has its own POA, and we actually have a petition already signed by all the members of the crossing community where we would like to be annexed in.
Okay, that's a process you'll have to take into the planning commission and get those, and they'll make sure you got all the process to go forward with it.
Okay, so we were notified whenever this came about annexing this in. We're kind of confused on why we were notified about that if we can't be annexed in as well.
Ben, help me out, please.
I'd be happy to. The annexation petitions have to be initiated by the petitioners and filed at Benton County Clerk's office. So if they haven't filed that at the Clerk's office, then it's not a petition. So I talked to the POA lady about it and told her what to do some months ago. So.
Okay, so why were we notified about this meeting if it doesn't affect us?
You're notified because the city code requires everyone with 300 feet to be notified of any kind of application. You're notified about the preliminary plat, not the annexation. This is the preliminary plat that you're looking at right now. Just to build the subdivision.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you, sir.
thank you.
Are there any other comments from the audience, please? Hearing none. Commissioners? Any questions or comments?
I had emailed Ben earlier in the week about the gate, and I wanted to ask again, what the
Okay.
nature, what would the gate look like? What part of the street would it cover? Would it cover fence to fence, or would it leave open the sidewalks for use by the kids who live in the crossings to be able to enter that park, or what is the nature of the gate?
The exact details haven't been fleshed out 100%, but how I understand is it would be a gate that would more likely roll in and block the roadway surface. They would probably not cover the sidewalks, so I would think that people could still probably walk to and from. You know, the whole purpose of the gate is really just to prevent people from cutting through this area. Not only to protect the residents that live in there, to prevent additional traffic, but also to prevent those residents from impacting the crossings, mainly because of the fact that the roadways are just in such bad shape right now. I will say that should the crossings ever be annexed into the city and all these streets become part of the city network, and should there happen to be an improvement of said streets, then there may be a discussion, a conversation about taking that gate up at that time. But those are two big ifs, and you know we have to get to that point before we can talk about that.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, are there any other comments? Yes. Get up here to the mic. I'm sorry, ma'am, the opportunity from the audience, I had asked after the other gentleman was up here. Commissioners, any other? Hearing no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve preliminary plat 20-05 with following conditions. The applicant shall install privacy fence along the north and west exterior property lines on certificate of occupancy. And the applicant must annex the subject property into the city of Siloam Springs and zone property to planned development as indicated on preliminary plat.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Smith.
Get to talk now? Yes.
Driscoll.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Song.
Yes.
Montgomery.
Yes.
Sally.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Motion is approved. This will go to the Board of Directors on November the 3rd, 2020. Next action to come before this board is the final plat development permit FP 20-06. Ben Rhodes, please.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Commission. Before you is a final plat permit called the Endura Park Edition. As you know, the city recently changed the review process so that final plats are not considered by the Planning Commission. If the plat in question was not altered in any way from the corresponding preliminary plat. In this case, however, you are considering a final plat that has been changed since the approval of the preliminary plat. And this is occurring at 14701 North Country Club Road, directly south of the Mission Hill project that you just previously reviewed on today's agenda. Here is the site plan. The street layout is the same as what was previously approved in the preliminary plat. As you can see, the applicant is constructing two streets connections to North Country Club with a detention basin in the southwest corner and a larger multifamily lot on the southern quarter of the entire site. So as far as the changes I mentioned, which is why this permit is before you, the street width is proposed to be reduced down from 30 feet to 27 feet. Now, the city code requires the streets to be at least 26 feet from back of curb to back of curb. So this reduction meets code, but it is an alteration from the preliminary plat. Staff is okay with this change, provided that the street is widened back to 30 feet, starting at lot 77, which I can point out right here. This is needed so that the duplex lots have an extra space on the roadway for on-street parking, which tends to increase with the higher density, housing density. Here you can see a side-by-side comparison between the preliminary plat and the proposed final plat. In addition to the street width narrowing, the applicant removed the detention basin in the northeast corner and converted this area to 3 additional single-family lots. This basin is no longer needed, and it was determined through the drainage report that the basin at the southwest corner is sufficient for the entire development. In addition, on the left you'll see these lots here that have been circled in red. These lots are deleted now that and are included in part of the larger multifamily lot with interior utility easements to match with the multifamily project that's planned on that lot. That is, by the way, the next agenda item on today's agenda. So in summary, the changes include narrowing the street abutting the single-family lots, the removal of the detention basin in the northeast corner with the conversion of that area into single-family lots, the removal of 3 of the 2-family lots, the enlargement of the multifamily lot, and the combination of the 2 multifamily lots into 1 larger lot. Finally, here's the site view looking north with Mission Hill in the far background. I'd like to cover some of the special circumstances to be considered with the final plat permit beyond just the design changes I've covered. So normally the city accepts final plats that are 100% finished. However, in this case, the developer would like to be able to start construction of the multifamily project, a significant development that's next on the agenda today, while the streets are being put in. This is to eliminate the wear and tear on the streets while the project of this size is being constructed. So as you can imagine, there's lots of wear and tear, dump trucks coming in and out. They don't want to necessarily do that on a brand new street. To allow for this, the city staff will require a performance bond that will enable the final plat to be filed. The bond simply provides cash should the developer be unable to finish out the project as depicted on the final plat. If the related STP approval, staff will ensure that there is a proper fire access to the entire site with a certificate of occupancy approved when the addition is 100% finished, so people will not be living there while the project is under construction. It's very important to understand that. Finally, the city board will need to approve a related annexation that sets the zoning. This is also needed to be completed before the final plat can be filed. The annexation will be considered at next week's board meeting. So staff is recommending approval per the following conditions, and I'll roll through those really quickly just to remind everybody. So 1, that we receive a performance bond. 2, that the vertical construction be subject to the fire marshal's approval. 3, that the plat be filed within 45 days. That's a standard condition. 4, that the 2-year maintenance bond also be included. That's also standard. 5, that the applicant must annex and zone the property per the approved preliminary plat. 6, that the applicant must complete a sanitary sewer extension to the north so that the property to the north can use this for the development. An agreement has been reached between both developers, that of this project and Mission Hills, regarding that sewer line. And finally, the 7th condition is that the utility and drainage easement be provided off-site for the sewer work. This is needed because the applicant will connect the sewer directly to Brashears Road rather than along North Country Club. And with that, staff is available for any good questions. Thank you.
Have any comments from the audience? Hearing no comments from the audience, commissioners? Without comments from the commissioners, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve final plat 20-06, subject to the following conditions. Number one, applicant must supply a performance bond or an irrevocable letter of credit for all uncompleted work prior to the board of directors review. Number two, the applicant shall not construct any vertical structure associated with the building permit on the property until authorization is given by the fire marshal. Number three, the applicant must file this plat at the Benton County Circuit Clerk's office and provide 2 file copies to the city within 45 days of the board's acceptance of this plat. Number four, the applicant must submit a 2-year maintenance bond prior to the city's release of the performance bond or the letter of credit. Number five, the applicant must annex the subject property into the city of Siloam Springs with the zoning as indicated on the plat prior to filing the plat for record. Number six, the applicant must complete the sanitary sewer extension across the subject property in a manner to provide gravity sewer access to the property adjacent to the site to the north prior to the release of performance bond or letter of credit. And number seven, the applicant must provide a utility and drainage easement for the off-site sanitary storm sewer involved with the project prior to issuance of building permits.
Thank you. Do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of FP 20-06. Roll call, please.
Driscoll,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Song,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Selly,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Motion is approved. This will go to the board on November the 3rd, 2020.
November the 17th.
I stand corrected. This will go to the board on November the 17th, 2020. Thank you, Jay. Now, next on the agenda is Significant Development Permit SD 20-05.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. For the last item under the development approval section of your agenda, you're considering a significant development mentioned as part of the final plat discussion that we just covered. This is for a 148-unit multifamily project that's in addition to a recreational park occurring at Endura Park. Here is the proposed site plan. The main entrance will be off of Conway Street here. The project is divided into 3 parts. The first being more townhome-styled multifamily project. Each townhome will not be individually owned, but will be all on one lot. The second central area here is best described as 4 multifamily structures with dwellings on 3 levels. And the furthest west section is again a return to the townhome style housing, but without the individual garages. And finally, you'll note the park on the top left area with its amenities, swimming pool, play equipment, basketball court, etc. And here you see the landscape plan. There's ample shade trees and ornamentals throughout the entire project, meeting our codes. And the plan aerial overlay, how this will sit onto the property. We'll note that this is within Endura Park, so we're going to have lots out along the perimeter. These are to be the 2-family lots with the multifamily embedded within the development. Here we always like to show you guys the elevations, what these will look like. So we got the front, that's the east area. These are the townhomes that have the garages, and then with the rear of those. And then we have the front elevation of the smaller townhomes up the top without the garages, and then the front view of the 3-story multifamily project. So they're all going to be designed similar architectural styles, so they'll all be somewhat harmonious within the project. And then this is the side view looking to the north. We are recommending approval of this significant development with 5 conditions. Number 1 is that the final plat associated with the project be filed and recorded prior to building permit issuance. 2, that the applicant must finalize work any addition prior to the certificate of occupancy for any structure associated with this project. Number 3, that the fire marshal must ensure that the fire department has access to the site prior to building permit. That's so that in case there is an emergency, something catches on fire, they can get out there and not be impeded by the construction process. Number 4, the applicant must pay street fees as needed with the building permit, and that the applicant comply with the parking lot lighting standards as shown as part of the building plans. Staff is available for any questions on this permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Do we have any comments or questions from the audience? Hearing nothing from the audience, commissioners, do you have questions or comments?
I do. I noticed that this is our largest multifamily project since Spring Valley. Can you, or do you know, parking per unit in that development?
Could you repeat the question, sorry?
The parking per unit density.
Oh,
that
right,
is in
right, the
Spring
parking.
Valley right now.
Yes. So normally that is 2 spaces per unit. They are requesting a parking reduction as shown in the plans. I believe I have that in the report here.
I just wondered what Spring Valley is now. Did they,
Oh,
did they
right.
get to 2 per unit?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was misunderstanding your question. I thought you meant for this project.
No, I know that's 1.8.
Spring Valley, I would really need to research that more. I would say it's comparable. There's several things to take into consider when you're comparing a project like that, is that the codes in the year 2000 are different than today. So I really can't say, whether Spring Valley it should have met the codes at the time it was constructed, but would it meet today is debatable, and we have to do a side-by-side comparison of 2 regulatory systems. And, I'm not aware of any, particular parking issues at Spring Valley, but,
No, that's what I was getting at, is I think
Yeah.
it's okay there. It kind of feels like we're locked into 1.8 since we've already let him start on preliminary plat development, and then here we are approving a significant development. I mean, can we even make changes at this point, I guess?
That's a great question. The preliminary plat basically stated that there would be multifamily at this location. It did not go into the details of exactly the design of the multifamily. That is what the significant development permit is that you're looking at right now. So, can there be design changes? Sure. I mean, that would that would require a table of this, because
And I'm not saying, I don't think we need him, I'm just saying process-wise, did we put ourselves in this position by allowing him to go ahead and get going on it, and then, accommodate the entire development with this project at the lesser parking density?
I don't believe that was inhibited by the fact that there's a preliminary plat on the table, because they have the ability to design this however they choose to do so.
I just wanted to make sure he wasn't putting us in this position to where we had to
No,
accommodate.
I don't believe that would be the way to look at it, but that's a good question.
And I think what you asked was if the Spring Valley was built with the 2 spaces for every dwelling unit, was that the same policy when the Spring Valley units were built? Do you know, Ben?
I wasn't around when they were built, so I can't speak to that, unfortunately.
Got it.
That was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners?
Last one here. 2 dumpsters for this whole thing seems like a little amount of dumpster. Are these huge dumpsters, I guess? Or are they not? They're just not normal, like, garbage.
I believe they would be sized appropriately for what's proposed. I
So
would
it
probably.
seems like one of those fills up real fast if it's a normal size.
Yeah, we, from a zoning planning perspective, we don't regulate the sizes of that. That's really up to the applicant and the sanitation. The sanitation can come in and acquire a larger dumpster. there. I mean, what they're doing is just providing that site, the location where it will be constructed, and then those details tend to get worked out with the building permit review. Because, you know, there's a whole separate review beyond this. After this is approved, that's part of the building permit. So,
Thanks, man.
thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any further questions? Seeing and hearing no further questions, I will entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve significant development permit SD 20-05 with the following conditions. One, final plat associated with lot 100 must be filed for record prior to building permit issuance. Two, applicant shall finalize all work associated with performance bond or letter of credit to complete the Endura Park addition prior to certificate of occupancy. Three, fire marshal shall verify fire apparatus has access to 100% of job site prior to building permit issuance. Four, applicant must pay street fee of $25,158.52 prior to building permit issuance. And five, applicant shall comply with exterior parking lot lighting city standards, including a photometric plan in the architectural plans prior to building permit issuance.
I have a motion to approve SD 20-05. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Song,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Driscoll.
Yes.
Significant development permit SD 20-05 is approved. This will go to the Board of Directors on November 17th, 2020. Next item on the agenda tonight is code revision approval. Ben Rhodes.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Commission. So we'd like to shift gears now and present a proposed code change to Chapter 102. This is to permit the city to offer fence and paving permits. And the reason this is needed is because these aspects are currently being regulated within the zoning code, but are not necessarily subject to permitting if they are not associated with some other permit, like a building permit or significant development that you just looked at, you know, those types of things. So we are, in addition to requesting these permits, we are also adding a definition to site distance triangle to better define this area as it comes into play with the fencing itself. And those of you that drive around sometimes, that you get up to an intersection and there's a tall fence right there. It's really hard to see that oncoming traffic, and so that's why we need to define those site distance triangles a little bit better to be more efficient and safe for people who are traveling, so they don't get hit when you try to pull out near an intersection. So as far as the scheduling, this will go to the board on November the 3rd, and we'll receive their traditional 3-reading ordinance. And assuming it's approved, the permits will likely go into effect sometime early next year. And staff will go through a campaign to educate the public regarding the permits, that they exist, that you need them, that type of thing. We did something very similar when we required permits for the storage buildings, which we now get permits for those. Oh, went the wrong way. So I didn't want to leave it just at that. I wanted to give you some visuals. As they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I think in this case we see that. Here's why we want a permit. This gentleman here constructed a fence over where a sidewalk was supposed to go through. Obviously, that's going to be a problem. We have issues where fencing is being put over key infrastructure, water meters, manhole covers. This basically is the bane of the water, wastewater department, because they need to access these sometimes, and there's a fence in the way. It becomes very problematic. So we're trying to prevent those types of things by requiring an inspection before the fences are erected to avoid this type of infrastructure. As far as paving, we've had situations where people put in a gravel parking lot. They're very popular because gravel lots are cheaper than asphalt or concrete. Well, the code allows gravel lots, but provided there's no more than 10 spaces. In this case, I've seen the cars are blurred out because we didn't want to, identify anybody or anything like that. But this lot is far more than 10 spaces. We put in without any consultation of staff or anything. Just they disappear, and we see them one day, and we have no notification that they show up. That's the same situation here, where a lot just got paved without any acknowledgement of green space buffers or anything like that. Again, the whole purpose of the permit is not to bring about more regulations on people, but to alert staff of these things happening so we can inform them of what the potential rules are that would impact their project. Here this might seem pretty benign, but this infrastructure here is actually critical infrastructure that's not rated for the weight of vehicles to be on top of it. So you don't want to be paving over that stuff, and so it has caused kind of a problem. So with that, this basically finishes the picture show there, but I'm welcome to answer any of the questions.
So I have a quick question. So
Yeah.
if you update the code, what happens to the owner who just built or who built the fence blocking the sidewalk?
Well, keep in mind that this is only applicable to new projects, and we're not going to go back
Right.
and penalize existing issues. The city is working with each individual situation to try to fix the situation, whether there's rerouting the sidewalk or moving part. The owner will be willing to move part of the fence, but those are all going to be on a case-by-case situation. This approval of this today would not then give us the authority to go back and give people a violation or citation. That's why we have the grandfather clause. They're essentially considered grandfathered in. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Do we need commissioner's approval on this, Ben?
Yes, sir. This is something that you need to vote on. Yeah.
And this, I read in here, but just, it does not apply to maintenance and repair of existing fence structures, that's right?
Correct. This is just permitting. That's all it is a permit. It has nothing to do with any fence standard, height, location. All those are already on the books. So all this is just doing is requiring the permit and also adding that definition I mentioned earlier about the site distance triangle.
Is there a way, and I don't know, I mean, I'm just talking here, but $10 just seems like that could be more annoying than, I know we've got to cover our time, but for the residential piece of it, I mean, that'll probably be a builder, I guess, likely most of the time paying that, but is there a way to step into that, or maybe do a notification campaign and build up to it with some, I don't know, I just want to talk about it, make it not seem like a money.
Yeah, the fee was just a suggestion. We didn't want it to be too high to be considered inhibitive to people, but high enough that they know that they need to get a permit. We have run into situations where permits that are licenses that don't require fees, people tend to think that they're not required because there's no fee, therefore you don't need it, and so we do want to make sure that the message is presented fairly to the public that this is a required permit, there is a fee for it, and that would cover some of staff's time. You'll note that the commercial fee is higher. That was, we did work quite a bit on that. We kept going back and forth as to whether it's a linear thing, like how many feet or square feet would bump you up to a higher fee, but we realized that it is better to keep all residential one level, and then we would bump it up with commercial or industrial projects because they tend to be more impact, have a bigger, and I believe that we set that at $25. So.
Other questions from commissioners?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, I applaud staff's effort to update the code, especially like site triangle. I mean, that's really critical for the safety of the people in Siloam. So, we thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Hearing no other, go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Sorry, Ben, can I ask you one question? So, regarding the side triangle, I saw that it said no opaque fence shall be built, right? So in the historic district, if somebody who has sidewalks there, if they want to build like an ornamental iron fence that is in their front yard, will that still need to be 18 feet from the roadway on those corners? Or will someone, if they want to put up a...
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me just see what you wrote. I don't want to tell you something and then find out I said the wrong thing.
Because I understand the reason for the, for the privacy fences near intersections, but I just wondered about like an iron fence.
Yeah, the code says that there's no stationary objects taller than 30 inches as measured from the pavement of the elevation on which the motor vehicle rests shall be within this area. So the key term is 30 inches. So they can have a smaller decorative iron work of some kind. It just can't be more than 30 inches.
Okay.
And it's any stationary object because, they're, we're not talking about like, a temporary type things. And, sometimes permanent stationary object that just stays right in there that prevents you from being able to see. Because the whole concept is to try to open this area up for safety.
Right.
Then would that also apply to landscaping?
Yes, I'm getting the nod. So under 30 inches, you're fine. It's just above that 30 inches is where you're going to get the problem.
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? I will entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve the code change.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the code revision. Roll call, please.
Song,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Driscoll,
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
This motion is for code revision approval is approved. This will go to the Board of Directors on November the 3rd. Next item for tonight is staff approved permit.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. For the final part of today's agenda, you're looking at the staff approved permits, and I will cover all these and then allow any questions at the very end of the presentation. So the first one we're looking at is 18 North Elgin. They're combining 3 lots into one. They already went to the Board of Directors for easement on September 15th. Here you see what they did. They basically took out that center lot to create 2 buildable lots there, and in the Couches addition. Here we have a lot split. This should be somewhat familiar. This is the site of the Siloam Best Storage. You guys do recall that there was going to be a separate billboard lot on that bottom right corner. So this is the lot there that got created at the bottom there. And that also went to the board for easements on October 6th and was approved. And then finally, this is the site, a lot split at the Carley Crossing addition, another one that should be familiar, out on Lawless Road and Highway 43. And this also went to the board on October 6th. And what they're doing was to split the 40 acres so that you have a dog leg that connects up to Lawless Ranch. And there's a street stub here that will come out like that. And they would want this to be part of this entire Carly Crossing addition. And so they're doing that split to take off lot 1 from the remainder of the property. Here on the right is what was approved with Carly Crossing, just to refresh your memories. And I believe that is the final bit of my presentation, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Hearing no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.